As soon as they announced that Football Manager was moving to the new Unity engine, so many of you started to panic that your rubbish old laptops wouldn't be able to run the game anymore. Well, worry not. I finally have you covered with a comprehensive list of computers at different price ranges that will run the game when it releases in a couple of weeks' time. And don't worry, I didn't prepare the list. I've got someone who actually knows what they're talking about, who's going to come in and tell you what to buy. It is all going to be bookmarked because I know different people are looking at different price ranges and all that kind of thing. It's probably going to be quite a long video. So if you've got a budget in mind, head to that section of the bookmarks now. But before you go, if this does make you think, oh, actually, I can get Football Manager after all. I wasn't planning on getting it, but now I can because I'm going to have a computer to play it on. Don't worry, I can also sort you out with a discount for buying the game, which you can do through my affiliate link. It gets you the game cheaper than it would cost on Steam with early access as soon as that early access beta drops. The link to that is at the top of the description below. It also supports the channel, so it's win-win for all of us. But using the magic of editing, because I am a skilled editor, as we all know, I'm now going to cut to there being two people in front of you, one of which actually knows what they're talking about when it comes to computers, which is quite handy for a video like this one. Look, boys and girls, Nerdphonic is here. He knows what he's talking about. If you've ever watched a Football Manager video, there's a good chance he made the setup for it, regardless of who made it. Apart possibly from that American guy. I don't think he went to America to set his up for him.
No, too expensive for America.
But he did build everybody else's. So if you enjoy Football Manager content, he's the one to thank for it. And he does actually know about computers and stuff. So I've given him homework over the last couple of weeks.
Significant amounts of homework.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I gave you 5 categories for potential computers that people
I may have cheated on one of them.
Yeah, I have tried. I mean, you'll see from category 1, boys and girls, I did try and sort you out, but somebody's a little bit precious about his quality and didn't like my first category.
We'll move on to the categories in a moment, but there is justification for it, and I feel like that is better consumer advice than to just say,
go on then.
But we've got to first of all go through the actual requirements for Football Manager 26.
This is
first.
true, because it's not necessarily the case that you are going to need to go and get a new computer. I know the knee-jerk reaction, especially when that first trailer came out and it actually looks like a real computer game, so many people replied with, oh, I'm not going to play it on my laptop now, am I? And it turns out you actually might be able to, because it's not turned it into something that you can only play on a top spec gaming PC. I think Miles put it in one of his interviews. They used to support 10-year-old PCs and now they support like 7-year-old ones or worse to that effect.
15, and it's gone from 15 to 10.
There you go.
Now, but still, yeah.
So yeah, if you probably are still going to be able to use it on your work laptop, is what we're getting at. But the actual system requirements, I don't know what any of these numbers mean, but this guy does. That's why he's here.
So there is one part on this that is, I think, a bit changeable, which is the actual operating system. Windows 10 is, by the time this comes out, or by the time Football Manager releases, will no longer be supported. So you'll likely be buying something that has Windows 11 if you're buying something new anyway, or be forced to upgrade to Windows 11 by Microsoft anyway. So that is one of those things that we can kind of ignore. But yes, as Kev said, the minimum requirements to run FM26 are still wide-ranging. The problem with system requirements is whether it's minimum, recommended, or whatever the range is, it doesn't actually explain what that minimum experience or that recommended experience actually is. And because we don't have our hands on the game yet, we're having to put a lot of faith in what Sports Interactive say you need to run the game. But that's the I guess the overarching caveat for all of this. But effectively, if you have an oldish computer made within the last 10 years, there is a chance, as long as it's not a complete potato, that you'll probably be able to run it. If it's already got a discrete graphics card in it, whether that be a laptop or a desktop, you're going to be fine, I think, as long as it's made within definitely the last 5, probably the last 10, as long as it, again, not a massive potato. There is a huge, over the past 10 years, that's a massive, massive hardware sort of period to cover. There's been loads of different models released, lots of different naming conventions. There's too much to cover in all of that. So we're going to focus on newer things, because ultimately, if you're buying new, that is what you're going to be looking at. The second-hand market is a bit different. So we won't be covering that at all in this video.
Well, there you go. And you have threatened to make your annual YouTube video and do some testing of stuff after the game is out. We've actually got our hands on it, haven't you? So
yes, so I will be making a video. I've already planned it, but I can't do anything with it until the game actually comes out, because I'm going to be running benchmarks so you can see, so I can give better advice on how many leagues you'll be able to run in with a particular hardware setup, and also providing screen captures as well as, I guess, capturing from a camera, so you can actually see what the game will play like from different hardware perspectives. So I've got hardware already lined up to hit the minimum recommended and then above recommended requirements. So whichever you're looking for, if you're still on the fence about buying something new, or if you just don't know if you need to, based on how you want the game to play whilst you play it, wait for that video. It'll be out hopefully as close to sort of release as I can be, but it's going to take probably, I'd say, at least a week, if not two, to get all of those benchmarks compiled, put together. Once the advanced access, beta access, whatever we're calling it this particular week, once that is out, I'll be in the cave working, trying to put that together. So,
and if you've already forgotten his name, I'll link to his channel down in the description below, so you can find that video when the time comes as well.
Yes. Okay. Shall we hit the list?
Yeah. So I gave Matt some categories, and he is absolutely cheated, and I'm not very happy about it, because the first category I gave was the absolute cheapest way to play Football Manager, just like minimum specs, just get me a machine that will run the game for as little money as possible. And he gave me a one-word reply to that category.
So the one-word reply to that category is nope. But there's many caveats, and it's a much longer answer than just simply nope. The reason why I've said no is because if you already have a computer and it is around 10 years old, it will still be able to run it better than something you buy for £300 now. So if you already have a machine, you probably have something that runs it at least at minimum requirements. There's no point in spending another £300 just to get something that also runs it at minimum requirements. If you don't have a computer already, then I guess that's a slightly different scenario. But I would have thought
you could probably just buy anything on Amazon and it will run the game to a point. It won't necessarily run it well, but you could just go and drop 250 quid on anything and it will theoretically run it, just not necessarily well.
Yeah, you're most likely, if you're looking at sort of the £300 or £400 mark, my general advice would be bump yourself up for, like, wait a month, save a bit more up, and then buy something that's got a discrete graphics card, not integrated graphics, because your experience for the extra £100 you've had to save or wait until you've got your hands on will be infinitely better than buying something that's £300 and just sits at minimum.
The other thing to consider as well, if you are on the absolute low end of the budget, you've got the option to play it on console. You don't have to play the full fat PC version as well. So that is another option there for you. And it's going to be supposedly more similar to the PC version. We don't know yet because no one's seen it, but presumably, certainly on the screenshots we've seen that look very controller based, I suspect the console version is going to be a lot closer to the PC version from now on anyway. So my next category was the cheapest way to play the game to an actual acceptable playable standard. So we're not talking like absolute dirt entry level stuff.
You just referred to people as dirt. Dirt entry level.
I was referring to the computers as dirt, not the people. They know I love them. Please use my affiliate link. But yeah, we're looking at like the ones that are going to play the game pretty well now, future-proof yourself a little bit, so you know you're not going to have to buy another one in a year or two's time. You're set for a few years of your little Football Manager computer, my Bob. And he actually did give me some recommendations in this one. And on the topic of affiliate links, if you do want to say thank you to Matt for doing the video, make sure you buy these through the links that I'll put in the description down below, because they don't even pay me, they pay him, which frankly is hideous, but it was the only way to get him through the door.
Yeah, my head's enormous, apparently. So I've broken these down into sections. So we've got laptop examples and desktop examples for each of the categories that we'll be sort of putting things together for. I'm going to give you a little bit of, I guess, heads up advice, and then we'll go through each of the categories and the options there within. Use these as guides for what will be available. I'll also provide a suggested price range that you can get them for. Prices are relatively volatile. Things go on sale all the time.
Black Friday's coming.
And Prime had well, there was a Prime Big Deal Day, was it?
Yeah, a few days ago. Yeah,
some of these laptops featured in that, and they were significantly discounted. Some of them were dropped from like what they're listed at currently by about 150 quid. So
which is potentially an indicator that they might go in again on Black Friday.
Yeah.
So maybe don't jump immediately if you have got a machine to tide you over until then.
Indeed.
In fact, you should test it on your machine anyway before you buy anything new.
And there is, to add to that point, before we get into the full list, Steam, I know this goes against your affiliate link, so apologies. But if you are a bit unsure about whether it will run on your current computer, Steam, if you buy it through Steam, you can get 2 hours free.
But there's no guarantee it won't be full of scorpions if you buy it through Steam. So just, I've looked through the Steam listing. There is nowhere on there it doesn't promise that it promises you won't get a scorpion bite. So at your own risk.
Oh, this is where our morals conflict against one another. Kevin wants all of the affiliate.
I've got to eat. I haven't had a game for 2 years. You've got an actual grown-up job.
That is true. Anyway, shall we? Well, let's.
Show us some computers. You've upset me now. You've reminded me about the last few years. I need my Fanta to cheer myself up.
Okay, so in general, you'll be looking for this sort of acceptable standard. This is all based on. These are all computers, whether it be desktop or PC, that will at least meet, and in most cases will go past the recommended specifications by Sports Interactive. So I'm I am confident these will at least run at whatever SI determine to be a recommended level, whatever recommended means by them. So you'll be looking at, on the Intel side of processors, you'll be looking at least a 12th gen or a 13th gen i5, or a Intel Core Ultra, because Intel have been really helpful and changed their naming convention throughout the last few years, which makes it really awkward when trying to recommend specific processor types. But if you're looking at an Intel 12th or 13th gen, so that'll look like an i5 12. I'm not even going to read the names. You can see on the screen we've got an i5 13420H.
It's catchy.
It is very catchy.
Did they learn their naming conventions from Sony? This is incredible.
Yeah, they are horrible to read. So look for, if it's got a 12 or a 13 there and an i5 before it, that's kind of where you want to be pitching your processor on the Intel side. On the AMD side, there are some of those in this list as well. You'll be looking at a 7445H. Again, awful naming conventions, but look at Ryzen 5 and you can't really go too wrong there.
All the links are going to be clickable down in the description. You don't need to write any of this down.
No, the key bit really is that's your sort of processor specifics that you need to be looking for. But the key bit is aim for 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, and you'll be graphics card wise. You'll be looking at an RTX 4050, 5050. In some of these, you can even stretch to a 4060 or a 5060, which will be a bump up from the 4050. But I wouldn't go any lower than a 4050. There are 3050s that you'll see, but I wouldn't. There's no point bothering with that, I don't think. So this first option that I've got on the screen at the moment, this is a laptop that was on the past big day deals, Prime Day that's just gone past. This was I think this was either 630 or 650. It's currently at 750. At 650, this is a really good buy. Will get you exactly what you want in terms of FM performance, that's sort of meeting recommended specifications. And if you don't mind gamer looks, then there you go. Next on the list, very similar. In fact, I think it's the exact same processor, same setup.
Looks like a grown-up's piece.
It does look a bit.
You could use this one on a train.
It's a little less gamer core, but same processor, same amount of RAM, same graphics card. So there's a theme here. This is on for £800 at the moment. So the price range, I think, that you can kind of expect to be paying across the board here is between £650 and £900, depending on your, I guess, aesthetic preferences and how much hard drive space you need, or we'll call it hard drive space, but storage you need, whether you want a display that's high refresh rate and things like that. But if you're looking at say the main price range is £650 to £900 ish, and this is these are the options that are available to you. We've got this HP Victus, which is £850. Again, very similar spec. This is on the Ryzen side, but again, same amount of RAM, same graphics card, and then again, similar this is one of the newer Intel processors that's listed here. So this is called the Core Ultra 5, but effectively it's like an i5. It's the equivalent of an i5. It's a bit newer.
Specifically for predators as well, looking at that. So that will suit some of you, I'm sure.
No comment. But so this is one of the better priced laptops. And I think that of all of the options that I've looked at, this is probably one of the best deals. I think this has previously been up for around £1,000 and kind of fell into my other budget previously. But for £800, you're getting a 4060, which is above the 4050. The bump in performance in comparison to, say, for example, this is going to be a bit better, even though it costs less. So that's probably where I'd look to spend my money, even though the graphics card is a generation behind. And then this, again, similar sort of price range. You moved up to an Intel i7, but 4060 as well, same amount of RAM. So they're all under £900. So my choice, admittedly, it's on the upper end of the budget that I've I guess arbitrarily decided for this sort of price range that I think you should be spending. But for my money, it would be between these two. And again, the links will be down in the description below, and I'll mark these as the standouts.
And obviously these computers are going to do a lot more than just run FM. You're going to be able to play like grown-up games on them as well and do all of your other faffing about, presumably. It's not just going to be a Football Manager machine.
Well, I think that's the benefit, I guess, if we can call it a benefit, of Football Manager needing or them recommending higher specs than they have in the past, is that actually you've kind of got an excuse now to buy something that is a bit more capable and able to play more games on it. And that, I guess, there are obviously people that do buy laptops just for Football Manager because that's all they play.
This guy for years.
but now that having something that's more capable means that they have the option to play something a bit more graphically demanding. So if we move on to the desktop side, very similar spec, but the naming conventions of processors are a bit different. So I wanted to.
Why would they be the same? That
exactly.
would be stupid.
It would be really, really helpful if they did that. But similar price range. In fact, I've tried to kind of keep them all within one area. And the reason why I wanted to mention, in particular, the desktop side for this price range is you will notice when you start looking for PCs around this, desktops in particular, around this price range, there'll be lots of listings mentioning a 5700X, which is an AMD Ryzen processor, but it's on an older AM4 socket. You don't need to know what that means. Just don't be confused or persuaded into buying them because you're buying hardware that is already it's a generation old, but it's also 2 years longer in the tooth than the newer things, and there's no upgrade path. So even if you wanted to at a later date, you won't be able to. You already got the sort of the top end of what that socket offers. So look for anything that's AM5. The processor I've listed here to sort of aim your search at is the Ryzen 5 AM5 8400F in this sort of price range. And that's one of the examples that I've got on the screen here that shows that. The graphics card that you're looking to be getting is, again, yes, I guess this will perform slightly better than the laptop counterpart of the RTX 5060, but that's where I'll be aiming at. Again, this is around £800 at the moment. The one up, exactly the same processor. You're actually getting quite a lot of RAM for this price in comparison to the laptops. So if you do want, what did you refer to them as? Nerd boxes or geek boxes?
Yeah, I don't know why anyone would want one of these when you could have one you could play on the toilet.
But for the same amount of money, you're getting a lot greater performance out of the same amount of money.
The previous one had more colours on it, though. This one's got fewer pretty colours.
If that is important to you, then yes. But I wouldn't. But this has less, like half the amount of RAM that this one does for just £50 more.
For context, I haven't selected a computer for myself for as long as I've known Matt. I tell him to get me a new computer, and he arrives with one.
And I do consult you on it, but you're just not interested.
I just honestly couldn't care less. Yeah. It's so boring.
No. I do try to involve you in the discussion, in the process of what would you like? What do you need it to do? Do you want it to have pretty colours? And you go, I don't care. I just want it to work. Is usually the response.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my one at the moment maybe has colours, but I think they're facing the wall.
Yeah, that was a choice that was made when we cable managed it. Anyway, we're getting slightly off topic, so we're already in a long video. We're going to make it even longer.
I'm sorry. Carry on with your 30, 90, 40 talk. Trying to add a bit of colour. My word.
We already have on the screen with this, with the other.
Continue then.
And then next up, and I'd say this is again similar sort of price, but this same processor, but this has the AMD equivalent of the 5060, which is called the 9060 XT. So any of those will be fine. Will give you great performance for the money. They're all roughly sort of the same. I would say the standout of the options that I've picked at this sort of particular price point is this one, because you have slightly higher RAM when you compare it to this Scan PC. There isn't a huge amount available at this sort of price point, to be honest. And to be honest, there is also here, which is a little bit more expensive, but still under the £900 bracket. It would probably be worth moving yourself up to spending the £880 on this one if you preferred the aesthetic look, because you're getting a graphics card higher in the 5060 Ti, which will be slightly better than the 5060. Okay, I think I've probably baffled enough people with that. So should we move on to the
we shall, but first I'm going to cough a lot. So expect a jump cut. So that's got us sorted for the mid-tier. It's going to run Football Manager forever and do all the other stuff you could possibly want as well. And it'll be fine for, I would say, the vast majority of people who are looking to buy a computer as a result of FM26 coming out. But I did give Matt another category. This is I want to load every league in the game, run everything on absolute top specs, and I want it to be super fast and awesome. How much do I need to spend to make something like that happen? So this was the fantasy build a super PC section.
The fantasy super builder PC. I mean, you wouldn't build a laptop, but
I don't know. Someone does, I guess. They don't just spontaneously enter the universe.
Again, this is quite we'll call it a broad spectrum, because we'll start with the price range, or the guide range, at least on the laptop side that we'll start with, is between £1,000 and £1,800. But you can go well past that if you really, if you have the budget, or it doesn't exist and you just want to spend money. But this is kind of what I'm pitching as the aim, or the aimed specs of that is well above recommended, and that will give you more flexibility when it comes to loading leagues. We don't have a huge amount of information to base this upon at the moment. Previously with FM24, there's been benchmark after benchmark, so you know exactly how fast the game will run and how many leagues you can run. We don't really have that information, which is why I've kind of gone much higher than I think we need to, based on FM24 data a little bit, because I don't think the actual game processing speed is going to change a huge amount from FM24 to FM26. Proof will be in the pudding, but these will be fine. So similar sort of guidance on the processor side. You're looking at Intel 12th gen and upwards, but you're looking at i7, not i5 this time, and that includes the Core Ultra 7 up from the Core Ultra 5. Yes, confusing again, same problem. And on the AMD side of the processors, you're looking at Ryzen 7, or in some cases Ryzen 9. Again, as the budget increases, so will the numbers, I guess. On the RAM side of things, you'll be looking at between 16 and 32 gigs of RAM. As you saw on the upper echelons of the last, we'll call it budget category, we were starting to get into 32 gigs of RAM. I would find it unlikely, especially when we get to the desktop side, that you'll be getting less than 32 gigs of RAM. But that may be in expense of getting a better processor. So you will always have to make some compromise somewhere, unless you just have this never-ending budget, I guess. On the graphics card side, you're now going to be looking at the Ryzen. That's not what I meant to say. That is the NVIDIA RTX 4060 to 5060, which again we're just encroaching on in the other budget. But that's what you should at least be getting now on the laptop side of things. maybe in some of the laptops you'll be looking at 5070s, 4070s. So let's actually look at some laptops now. So
yeah.
So the reviews on this aren't amazing. So
They think it's rubbish. A 3.3. Even my book has got
Yeah.
a better rating than that on Amazon.
but some of them are,
The worst laptop
Yeah.
I've had the displeasure of using. That guy hates it.
so there are some. I always find it hard when it comes to when you've got such polarizing reviews on laptops or on anything, full stop. But some of these reviews, I mean, I'll leave it up to your own interpretation, but some of them for this particular laptop are expecting it to have amazing battery life when it has a massive graphics card inside a very confined box. So temper your expectations, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. If you've got something that is going to be running, effectively consuming 140 watts of power, it's not going to have the best battery life, especially if the battery isn't particularly large. You want it to be portable as well as being able to play games. You're probably going to have this plugged into the wall. But this very much is the Intel Core i7, and it has a 5060, 16 gig of RAM. It's fine. It also has a relatively fast display. It's under £1,000. It's a good, I guess, entry level option to my £1,000 to £2,000 mark, I guess. Next up, we're sort of increasing up the scale in terms of price. We're looking at around £1,300 now. You can see that this is actually a really new laptop. It's only been out fairly recently. The Ryzen AI 7 chips. Again, confusing names, but Ryzen 7 is there. 16 gig of RAM, RTX 5070. It's a 16-inch. I mean, I don't know if people really care about the size of
a light-up keyboard. I like that.
Good, Kev. Good. Yeah. So this is as we call it, there is a slightly higher version that appears again in this list that if you've got a bit more money, you might want to look at, which is very similar. But next up, again, similar, but Intel Core i7, 5070 graphics card, 32 gigs of RAM. So you're actually getting a little bit more for your money. This is just under £1,500 and similar sort of money, 32 gigs of RAM, but you're getting the Ryzen i9 AI9 chip instead of the 7. So this is the same version as this laptop, but the extra £200 gets you an extra 16 gig of RAM and a slightly faster processor. Then just above that, again, Ryzen 9, 32 gigs of RAM, 5070, different sort of aesthetic. This is sort of what you should be expecting to look at for this sort of price range for these laptops. And then finally, we've got this is a bit more expensive, and again, it's similar sort of to range of to the other Acer laptops I've mentioned, which is this Acer Nitro 16. It has the same amount of RAM. It's got the processor that is the same as the £1,300 laptop, but it has the best graphics card out of the bunch that I've shown you here, which is a 5070 Ti. It's probably worth the extra money over this one. It's kind of horses for courses, really. As I said, you compromise a little bit here and there. So if you're going to be doing more than just FM on your laptop, it might be worth buying this one because it's a bit more well-rounded and it's got a slightly faster processor. Whereas if you're more likely to be playing more games other than just Football Manager on the laptop, then this is probably the better buy. Because it's got the better graphics card. So it's more performant in that area, but the processor's still fine. But that's sort of, again, that is the range of laptop prices. So between £1,000 and £1,800, that's what you can be expecting to get. And those are the sorts of components and combinations of which, again, you use the links in the description for this, but use these specifications as a guide of what you can get for that sort of money.
These computers are so good, they'll make new gen faces look good, I imagine.
I don't want to commit to that.
Give me some desktop versions in this price range, for goodness sake.
Absolutely. Okay. So the desktop price range is, again, you'll get similar sorts of, you'll get better performance, and the naming conventions, again, are fairly similar. You'll be looking at Ryzen 7s across the board pretty much. I don't think you'll get into the Ryzen 9 area within this price range. But to be honest, if you're playing games on it, you don't need it. You don't need a Ryzen 9, especially with some of the later options. I have a standout pick that out of all of the options that I've shown, this is the one I would buy if I had within these budget ranges anyway, because it's such good value for what you get. But we'll get to that in a moment. I wouldn't recommend getting an Intel processor at this point for a gaming PC, particularly if you're looking at the value side of things. So I'm not going to recommend any here. On the graphics card side of things, you'll be looking for, if you're looking at NVIDIA, you'll be looking at the 4070, 5070, although I've included a 5060 Ti, which is just slightly below the 5070. On par performance-wise a little bit, but you're also saving a little bit of money instead of bumping yourself up to the 5070. In some cases, you'll be looking at the 5070 Ti and the 5080. So there's lots of numbers there, but basically, as long as on the lower end of the scale of this £1,000 to £2,000, you'll be looking at 40 and 5070s. On the higher end, you'll be looking at 5070 Ti and possibly encroaching on 5080 money. But that is very much top end of that sort of £2,000 guideline budget. On the AMD side, you'll be looking at the 9070 XT, as that's kind of the only option that kind of sits within this particular price range that I feel is sort of worth the outlay. So this is the first. This Scan Medius is the first option that I've selected. Again, Ryzen 7 8700F. It's got 32 gig of RAM, 5060 Ti. It's fine. But then if you...
Oh, that one's pretty.
I thought you might say that. So this, if we compare the prices, there's £100 difference between the two. You're getting the same processor, but you've bumped up to the 5070 from the 5060 Ti. So in terms of the other hardware, there's not a huge amount of difference. Same amount of RAM. Do they look the same? No, they are slightly different. But again, aesthetic choices. This is under £1,300. But you're getting a slightly better graphics card compared to that one. And then...
Plus, it looks like you could use it as a fish tank after you're done with it. You could take all the innards out.
You might need some silicon and sealant to make sure it doesn't actually leak.
It's fine.
But you know what? That isn't the worst idea. I'm surprised no one has done that yet. Like, actually, I bet that is a niche that because you could actually, because it's got a water pump in it, you could probably make it so it actually acts like an actual water pump.
Interesting.
That's a
million view YouTube video incoming, boys and girls.
That is a niche, a niche area on Etsy. Alternatively, old computer cases into fish tanks. Yeah, because metal doesn't rust when it comes into contact with water.
Oh, well, it's even better. I didn't know that.
So now we're going to move into, I think, in my opinion, this is the best value system of the ones that I've listed. It's you have what AMD class as the fastest gaming CPU you can currently get, which is the Ryzen 7 9800X 3D. You get the 9070 XT, which is equivalent performance to the 5070 Ti on the NVIDIA side, 32 gigs of RAM, plenty of storage, actually looks quite nice. But for £1,600, the performance jump from this to that is enormous. And in terms of FM performance, this would be you spending more money on a processor won't get you much more. So for £1,600, you are well within that £1,000 to £2,000 range. But I think this is a fantastic value proposition for the cost. Again, you can bump yourself up a little bit to get more storage and things like that. But ultimately, if you're only playing Football Manager, you don't need more than a gig of storage.
You're going to be able to run a few leagues on that one.
Exactly, yeah. I have selected some that are slightly above my selected price range, just to suggest.
I did tell you to go nuts.
We did go a bit more nuts. So we're above the £2,000
Oh, that looks
mark.
pretty though. Look at it. Look at all those circles.
That is Kevin's new sensory tool. So
why is there so many circles? What do they do?
But they're fans, Kevin.
Okay.
They almost have as many fans as you do. Do you like that? That's good.
I mean, it's nowhere near, but yeah.
So aside from the aesthetics, this is slightly above the £2,000 budget. You're getting the same processor as the £1,600 budget beater, I'm going to call it. But you've also now moved up to an RTX 5080, which currently retails on its own just as a graphics card for around £900. So the value packed into this is actually quite significant. So although it is on the more expensive side, again, if you're looking at playing more than just Football Manager on this, you don't need much more than, there are only a few graphics cards that go above the 5080, which is either the 4090 or the 5090, and they're nearly double what that costs. And then you're into silly money territory. So yes, this is it. Although it's expensive, you are actually getting good value for money. Again, same processor that you don't really need to get much more for if you're just gaming. And then similar, in fact, it's pretty much the same spec, I think. Looks slightly different.
It's ugly.
It is a bit of a black box. But
don't buy this one, folks. This one's rubbish.
But in terms of actual raw specs, it's largely the same. It's roughly the same sort of price. The only difference is you're getting a slightly more storage. But this is the sort of spec you should be looking for if you're looking north of £2,000. So the Ryzen 7 9800X3D and a 5080 is plus 32 gigs of RAM is where you should be looking at for. Obviously, there are other options available and there may be sales available elsewhere, but use this or these options as your guide if you are looking for a gaming PC that, one, can run all of the leagues ever, and also maybe can run other games too that you're looking to play.
Very nice. Well, that's been a lot of talk about PCs, but what if I were a hipster and want to play on a Mac because I just like to be different and I really like the way that Apple works? Well, what Mac do I need to buy?
What Mac do you need to buy? So I pointed out that there was that £1,600 PC that I thought was the best value. This is the caveat, because the Mac Mini M4 is, for £500 or there or thereabouts, is an incredible deal. It's incredibly power efficient, but equally really powerful. It's tiny. It completely fulfills the recommended requirements for Football Manager, but equally is just a really, really good piece of kit for the cost as well. If you're looking to replace a desktop PC with something else and you don't mind about using a Mac, or you're not afraid of using Mac OS if you've never used it before.
Or you're cool like me and you prefer it.
That too. FM24 ran amazingly, or runs amazingly on Macs. I don't expect that to change when it comes to FM26, especially when this meets it exceeds their recommended specifications. And for £500 to get in on the ground floor of a Mac, this is fantastic. So if you've already got a monitor and you've got your mouse, keyboard and other peripherals, and you're looking to move up from something, this is a great, I would say this should fall into the cheap options. And if you're looking for a cheap way to get a new computer to play Football Manager, this is the cheap way to do it.
When did Apple stop being the crazy expensive option?
Oh no, there are crazy expensive, because you can make this crazy expensive if you want. If you start adding extra storage into it or extra RAM, then it gets silly and it becomes completely pointless to do that. But base level options, this is great. And if I didn't already have a MacBook Pro myself, it's what I would, and I had a limited budget. This can go. I've seen this drop under 500, and at that point it becomes a ridiculous deal. It's just above at the moment, but the prices do fluctuate. You can also look on, if you're not afraid of getting refurbished items, there is on the official Mac or Apple refurbished store, you can get these they're hovering at around £509 at the moment, so there is that option too. You don't necessarily have to go through Amazon. The refurbishment process that Apple go through is actually really good, and I have bought many things through it myself that are actually still running. So highly recommend that if one, budget is a concern and you want to have a good FM experience. So that is one of the options. If you need something more portable but the same level of spec, then you're looking at the base level MacBook Air, which is pretty much identical. It's just the form factor slightly different. So you're paying for the screen and the fact that you can take it with you. Yes,
you can sit in a coffee shop and have a latte and play Football Manager and look really cool with one of these.
And the fact that it's got incredible battery life, even when you're playing games. I say playing games, when you're playing Football Manager, is if if the FM26 performance is anywhere near the same as FM24, I've got 9 hours battery out of my...
Oh yeah, I'm also a MacBook Pro guy, and I have sat on my balcony in Centre Parks playing Football Manager for hours upon hours without needing to plug it in before, when I was doing my Pentagon way back when. So yeah, it's the battery life on these is bonkers compared to a PC. When I used to have, I haven't had a PC laptop for 15 years, but
same. I moved since I moved to Mac about 10 years ago for my portable device. And I've had three now, not because they've broken, but because my demands have changed. And I couldn't go back. The build quality, I find, is significantly better than an equivalently priced laptop for Windows. And they're just so much more efficient in terms of how they use power since moving to Apple's own silicon, that it's just...
The one downside to them is the little Apple on the back of the monitor doesn't glow anymore. So you can't quite be that cool.
You can always buy LEDs if you really want to have that return. But
because the main reason to get a Mac is because you really want everyone else to know you've got a Mac.
Thing is, they have become, because they're now, I would say they're more accessible in terms of price now, that it's
ruined it for everybody.
You were accusing me of being a bit of a snob earlier.
I'm absolutely an Apple snob, and everybody knows it. I think Apple is great.
In terms of cost, this is currently the higher end of the price that I've seen on Amazon at the moment. I've seen it drop as low as sort of $820, $850-ish. So this might be one that if you're still on the fence or you're not quite ready to pull the trigger on, maybe wait. It didn't drop in price for the big Prime Day that's just gone. Doesn't suggest that it won't do the same. It's significantly cheaper on Amazon than it is if you buy it directly through Apple at the moment. So I think Amazon is still the place to buy it, unless you want to have the whole I'm buying a Mac from Apple experience. But
they'll engrave it for you.
They will, but you will. You kind of, whilst you don't pay for the engraving, you do kind of pay for the experience of buying it through them directly.
Get an Apple carrier bag.
You do, yeah. It's great.
Still use Matt's affiliate link, but it's not quite the same as going to the store and getting the carrier bag. Speaking to a genius, I love speaking to geniuses.
I mean, we're wearing the old former style genius shirt.
Right. We've talked enough about desktops and laptops and things like that. There is one other category, though, that I did ask you to look at. These fancy new gaming handhelds, because I get asked about these all the time. There's actually a couple of videos on the channel of me testing, I think, FM23 and FM24 on the Steam Deck. And they were a little hit and miss about how well they ran. But I am led to believe you have the option of plugging them into a keyboard and a mouse and a monitor and actually using them as computer mobobs. I never tried that. I just used them as that, but I think the market has also moved on a bit since I got my Steam Deck years ago as well.
The handheld market, and we will link this back to the first point of me saying I didn't really think there's any good value entry level machines that are worth investing in to play Football Manager. This is the caveat to that, aside from the Mac Mini that we also mentioned in the last category. For £350, you can get the base level Steam Deck. And I know you've got one, obviously you've been...
I think it's great.
I've got the Asus ROG Ally, and they are for sort of... Obviously, you can move yourself up the various price ranges, but between £350 and £550, it's hard to buy a laptop that will be as good at performing in games as these can. So Kev and I were discussing it before we started recording. You can play things like games like Cyberpunk, Witcher 3 on these devices that are tiny in comparison. The APUs, which is a combined processing and graphics processing unit that are in them, are just fantastic pieces of kit. They're incredibly efficient to be able to generate what they can. So if you're...
And sometimes the battery will last nearly an hour.
Sometimes, yeah. There is downsides to this. And it's much the same as if you've bought a gaming laptop and you're expecting the battery to last any...
Don't buy it for a transatlantic flight unless you're ready to plug it in somehow.
Yeah, exactly. With my handheld, I've got 2 battery packs. I've even bought a spare battery that I need to fit into it that's got a slightly larger capacity. But for shorter trips on trains and things like that, they're great. For using them just at home, I've got wherever I'm likely to play it, so it's on the sofa or in bed, I've got plugs so I can just plug it in if I need it. But I think it's harder to get a device that performs to that level for any less money, really, and it's a good entry level cost to it. The actual gaming experience we're yet to see.
Yeah, it's difficult to say without having a go on FM26 on it, but from what we've seen from the screenshots, it does look like it's leaning to more towards working with a controller. You've got the console style user interface that they've got on there now. So my gut instinct would be, surely it's going to be a better experience on stuff like the Steam Deck. But obviously we are having our hands on the game as we record this, so we don't actually know that it's going to be better. But even if the controller side of things and the actual playing it as a handheld thing is still as hit and miss as it was on FM24, you can plug it in and set it up as a PC just by slapping some cables and a monitor into it.
So if you're intending to, or you need to buy a machine that is to replace a computer, but you're on a limited budget, buying a Steam Deck or the Asus Ally handheld, which these are a bit more hard to get hold of now because they're in the process of replacing them with the Xbox Ally, which I don't really like how it looks. What did you say? N64 controller that's been
it's had a screen stuck in it. Yeah, it looks like they've tried to make it look like an Xbox. It's an Xbox controller with a screen in the middle. So I get what they've done and why they've done it, but I feel like it looks more like a kid's toy than a cool piece of tech compared to the previous one.
So if we don't focus on the aesthetics, I use my handheld a bit like a Switch in that I have it in handheld mode, but then I also have a dock that I can plug it into on my TV and use it either as a computer or with an external controller or with a mouse and keyboard, so that it behaves more like a computer. And it is probably the easiest way to know that you can play Football Manager in a decent way, but getting a desktop experience. If you're more Windows oriented, look at the Ally or the Asus ROG Ally variants that you can get. I would be looking at getting the Z1 or the Z2 Extreme rather than the Z1 version of the Ally, which again, I think that's probably quite hard to get hold of now. They've kind of discontinued it a bit.
Let us know in the comments if you get the one that's left in stock at the time of recording.
Yes, but if you're wanting more of a Windows experience, or if you are going to be using it more in desktop mode than handheld mode, then the Asus Allies are what you want to be looking at. If you're not too afraid of having like a Linux style experience, although it's a curated, nice Linux experience.
It feels like you're playing on a console because you boot up, Steam is open, you just pick your game. It's very console-ified. You don't even know it's a PC in there or whatever a nerd would call it. Probably not a PC. Because
if you've ever used Steam Big Picture Mode, that's the experience you get when you plug it into a display. You can use it like a desktop if you need it, but just be aware that it's a Linux desktop, not a Windows desktop. So if you're looking to replace a Windows PC with a Steam Deck, you're probably not going to get like for like, and there'll probably be a few growing pains there, much like if you were to move from Windows to Mac. But these are really good value options if you need a device that is, I guess, a bit more flexible with your life if you travel a lot and if you don't mind using a display.
Plus, it's like a weapon. So you've got that added feature to it as well.
It's a really important feature. I forgot to mention that, Kev. But yeah, pick the one that fits your budget best. Is pretty much it's a good gaming experience, and don't be afraid of the performance. The fact that both of these both the Steam Decks and the Asus ROG Allies can run more intensive games suggests that even with the increased requirements for Football Manager now, we shouldn't have an issue, particularly if you're playing natively on the display. If you're looking to play on a 4K display with one of these, your mileage is going to vary significantly. But as long as you're looking at sort of playing on a 1080p monitor, you're not going to have any problems, I don't think.
Magic. And I think that wraps up our very long list of lots of computer devices. So thank you very much to Matt for coming and sharing all of his numbers with us. He loves a number, this boy. And let us know down in the comments if you've got any additional questions that we somehow didn't address in this extraordinarily long video, and I will filter the interesting ones through to Matt. And there's a chance he'll answer them in his video that will be upcoming on his channel once the game is out and he gets to do all of his testing stuff. So let us know if somehow you still have questions off the back of that. But the key message, I think, is if you've got a laptop that you got in the last 10 years, you're probably going to be okay anyway. So maybe test out the game before committing to spending loads of money on a new computer, and then use this as your guide if you do decide it is the time to take the plunge. And of course, in order to test out the game, you need to buy the game. And the best way to do that is through my affiliate link down in the description below. It gets you early access the moment the beta drops. It's completely scorpion free, which I'm willing to guarantee that. There's no, you're not going to get bitten by a scorpion if you buy my version. No one else has guaranteed that. So
okay, that's fine.
I mean,
scorpions,
yeah. So it's important to know, and of course, is cheaper than Steam and does support the channel as well. And if you do decide to buy one of the PCs in this video, use the affiliate links down below so Matt gets paid, because if you pay him that way, I don't have to pay him for being here, and that's the most important thing of all of this. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video. It's something very different to stuff we've done on the channel previously. If you have, leave a thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for, I mean, there'll be loads of there'll never be another video like this, but there'll be loads of Football Manager stuff the moment FM26 drops. And thank you very much for watching. Toodle pip.
Bye, everyone.